Good morning, Bucknutters. Welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, June 12th, 2024. I am Dave Biddle. I'll be joined by Matt Baxendell in just a moment. Bax and I are going to take a close look at 2025 offensive line recruiting for Ohio State. They got a great one in Carter Lowe. Can Justin Frye land any big fish from out of state? We're going to get into that and more. We're going to talk about Ohio State's schedule this year. My friend Bill Bender from the Sporting News did a really interesting piece yesterday ranking all 18 Big Ten teams as far as the difficulty of their schedule. Ohio State pretty much in the middle, 7th in the 18-team Big Ten. Still seems weird to say that. Ohio State has the 7th hardest schedule. Guess who has the toughest schedule? Michigan. So we're going to talk about that. We'll get into some special teams, but the crux of the show is going to be offensive line recruiting. All right, and I also want to, of course, tell you guys about Omaha Steaks and a great deal you guys can get. Hey, Father's Day is almost here. Are you struggling to find the perfect gift for the man who has everything? The solution is simple. Give him the unforgettable experience of Omaha Steaks, because a world-class dad deserves a world-class steak. The Father's Day experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to put a smile on the big guy's face with hand-selected gift packages starting at just $99. And when you use promo code Bucknuts at checkout, you'll get $10 off your order. With Omaha Steaks, the possibilities are endless flavor, endless variety, and endless value. Truly, they have perfected more than just steak. Your dad is guaranteed to love every bite. Pick from premium proteins like the juicy pork chops, air-chilled chicken, and beefy burgers, and of course, all their steaks. Make this Father's Day unforgettable with Omaha Steaks. Go to omahasteaks.com and order delicious gift packages at $99 with code Bucknuts at checkout to get $10 off your order. omahasteaks.com, $99. Use code Bucknuts at checkout to get $10 off your order. Satisfaction is guaranteed. There you go. Satisfaction with Matt Baxendell, also guaranteed. Good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Dave. How are we doing today?
I'm great. Of course, Ohio State is the number one class in the country, and I'm going to focus on maybe some negatives. No, I still think, they've got a really good chance of landing David Sanders. If they get David Sanders to join Carter Lowe, and then they fill it in with some other guys that are solid prospects, I'll be over the moon. And I think that there's a strong possibility that will happen. But, man, if that doesn't happen, I don't know, man. Justin Frye, it's like you look at some of these other guys on the staff, it's like Justin Frye, if he doesn't get this job done, Bax, he's going to be labeled fairly or unfairly as the weakest link on the coaching staff as far as recruiting.
I think that's a very fair thing to have that conversation about, though, right now, Dave. At the end of the day, landing Sanders along with Lowe gives you a pair of really highly, I think that's 2 of the top 6 tackles in the country. That would be a big deal. That would be a sort of a step in the right direction, particularly since Sanders is not an Ohio kid. Carter Lowe is one that I expect us to land no matter who our offensive line coach is, to be quite frank. It's an Ohio kid. Losing on elite Ohio kids is something we shouldn't do. But, if you pull in Sanders, who I believe he's from North Carolina, that's a good pickup, right? If you land Jackson Lloyd, who's from California, and it's OSU, Alabama, and USC chasing him, that's a good pickup. That's the stuff that the other coaches at the other position groups are doing right now. And that's what we need to see. So, yeah, it's the number one class in the country. We don't want to be super duper negative. I get it at all, right? But we're also buck nuts, not buck rational here. So at the end of the day, yeah, we need more beef. I've been saying this for a couple of years when it comes to recruiting, Dave. Every time I see a quarterback or a wide receiver at this point, I go, okay, sure. It's not that I don't care, but I'm not that excited because I know we're going to get these guys. I know we're going to get a bunch of good guys. I want to see D linemen. I want to see offensive linemen. We've started to pull a lot of these D linemen the last year or two here. Need to keep doing more of that work on the offensive line because that's where you win football games. No matter how this game has changed, no matter how modern the game is, you need to win the trenches. So, yeah, offensive line recruiting is something. Sanders and Lloyd in particular are the 2 that I'm just watching like a hawk right now because we need to get at least one of the 2 of them in this class.
Yeah, what's your vibe on Sanders? I was thinking it felt like he was leaning Ohio State's way, and he still might be. But the concern, from listening to the dean is definitely proximity. Definitely. And it's not even like Charlotte's that far from Columbus. It's a short flight. But obviously it's a much shorter drive for his family, if he would stay in the South than driving from Charlotte to Columbus. It's not a bad drive. That sounds like that's the one holdup. It sounds like he loves Ohio State. If Ohio State was in not even in his backyard. If it was a little bit closer, it sounds like David Sanders would be in this class. That's just my opinion. And I still think there's a really good chance the Buckeyes are going to land him. What's your vibe? Where are you at with David Sanders right now?
So I've driven from Charlotte to Columbus numerous times before. The route from Atlanta to Charlotte's about 3 hours. And and then Charlotte to Columbus is about 6. At the end of the day, uh, I think this is going to be an interesting decision because when you talk about proximity, Charlotte's a hub. You can fly direct to Columbus there all the time. That's a quick jaunt back and forth. It's not like you have to change planes or something. So I don't necessarily get the proximity concern here. Uh, another thing that you look at his list, there's a couple teams that are pretty high on him. Obviously, Clemson and Georgia are the two closest. Those are by far the two geographically closest. I think Clemson's about an hour and a half away from Charlotte, and then Georgia's probably about 2.5 to 3 to get to Athens, somewhere in that mix. But at the end of the day, that's the same amount of time that you would take to get on an airplane and fly to Columbus and be here. So if that's the reason he doesn't pick here, then he wasn't coming here, if I'm being real honest. So particularly when Alabama's in the mix too with them, so I think we need to let this one play out. It's really hard to land elite players out of the South when the Southern schools want them, but it's not like he grew up immediately next to Clemson. I mean, Clemson is right on the Georgia border in South Carolina. So, driving down from Charlotte's still a little bit of a drive. Going to the airport, hopping on a plane to Columbus it's no big a deal to me. And then if he goes to somewhere like Alabama is not easy to get to from where he's at. Alabama's every bit as far as Ohio State. So if he really loves Ohio State, it's not that far, is my opinion on it. But we're going to have to watch this play out. He's a very highly recruited kid. He's like, a top 5 overall player, number 1 lineman. So if proximity is the reason he doesn't come here, then that's an excuse. There's other reasons.
Yeah, number 1 offensive lineman in the country, number 1 offensive tackle, number 3 overall player in the country, regardless of position. I would like for him to be a Buckeye. And we've got good people on the case. That's for sure. We've got the Sanchez's on the case. We've got Monica Daniels on the case. We got Paris Johnson, her son, on the case. We've got good people on the case, okay? We've got Ryan Day on the case. We got Mark Pantoni on the case.
Who? Top men. Yeah. Who? Top men.
That's exactly right. Oh, did you see they lost a top woman yesterday? Somebody else leaving Ohio State to go to Michigan. What is going on here? Aaron Dunston, who worked with Mark Pantoni behind the scenes with recruiting, is leaving Ohio State to go to Michigan. Apparently her sister works there or something. I met Aaron once. She seemed nice. I didn't expect for her to be a turncoat. No. Did you see this at all?
I did, and I'm curious if it's a lateral move or if it's a notable promotion because I don't think she was originally tied to Ohio State until about 3 years ago anyway. So this may be somebody who doesn't have the emotional ties that all of us do to these programs. But I'm curious if she's going up to Michigan to get a promotion and hold a higher role. I mean, and as a woman in the male-dominated world of college football, having opportunities to increase the role you have is not something you can turn down lightly. But yeah, she's done a big part of the hosting side of things. Whenever we have our official visits, Ohio State's well known for having great visits. So if this is her getting more of an opportunity as a non-OSU person, there's family ties. It is what it is there. I think it's interesting to watch because, if she wants to be a female director of personnel for a college football program, I mean, maybe that's her goal, then you have to take the opportunities to get more responsibilities when they arrive to you. Somebody just popped this up there. I agree she's a bigger loss than Tony Alford. That's a much bigger loss.
That's a low bar, though, right? I wasn't sure if that was kind of like said in jest, I don't know if she's not a big loss, but she's a bigger loss than Tony Alford.
I think she's a notable loss. I don't know if what she did was necessarily irreplaceable, but she was very good at what she did. I can't necessarily say I think Tony Alford was good at what he did, and now he's doing that poorly for Michigan. So I'm kind of very happy how this has all worked out for Ohio State, to be quite honest. But at the end of the day, it's not to me going to change anything major about the rivalry. Let's put it that way. And I think Sherron Moore is desperate to get people to come there because he's still struggling with a lot of stuff up there being filled. So, yeah, I don't want to say it's not a big deal because from what I understand, she did a great job while she was here. I just wonder what the circumstances are around that decision to move. I don't think it's like how much, and plus, how much more money did they offer her to go up there? If somebody offered you the chance to work for, let's say Dave, instead of working for Bucknuts, you had gone to work for our Clemson site, and then our South Carolina site 3 years later offered you a 70% raise to write for them, you'd probably take it. You know what I mean? So there are factors that are involved there. And when you're not one of the people who goes to one of these schools or comes up in one of these areas, like I don't believe Aaron Dunstan's from Ohio originally.
I think she went to LSU. She's not a Buckeye.
Yeah. Yeah. So she's
She
a
was a
Southern
hired
girl.
gun. That's a great
Yeah.
analogy. If you take
Yeah.
we're all like, hard and true, like Buckeye, like supporters. Like if I had like some school that I didn't even care about, that I just worked as a JOB, and I was offered more money by their rival, yeah, I would take. I don't have any allegiance to them. So I mean, we're having fun with it. And I'm sure, I know where Mark Pantoni once referred to her as a rock star. So obviously he was a big fan of her. So we'll see.
She was good at what she did.
Ohio State was really good at
shame,
recruiting. Ohio State was really good at recruiting before she got there, and they'll be really good at recruiting after she leaves. So
yeah,
agreed. Yep. All right, so let's look at some of the other guys that are like offensive linemen. So Josh Petty's another guy, big time guy they're in on. He's the number 2 offensive lineman in the country. Roswell, Georgia. Does that seem like is it fair for me to say that seems like a long shot? The Buckeyes are going to get Josh Petty. I know he likes Ohio State, but
it's really hard to pull a Georgia kid when Georgia's on the case. And if Roswell is straight up Metro Atlanta, and I got a guy there. I'm going to call him up here. I'm going to get Mike on it. All right, I got a guy in Roswell because I used to live right by Roswell. Shout out to the Atlanta Alumni Association, which gathers on Roswell Road going to the Hudson Grill there every year. What's up, Atlanta Buckeyes? Go get this kid. But at the end of the day, the reality is that, like, if you're a Metro Atlanta area kid, Georgia wants him. Alabama wants him. Auburn wants him. They're all right there. Tennessee, you have to literally drive past the University of Tennessee going north from Atlanta to get to Columbus. Like, you ever talk about, in recruiting with the proximity where you have to go past schools to get to whatever school. If you're going to OSU on the highway from Atlanta, you literally drive by Tennessee. Like, you literally, there's campus. Hi, oh, there's the football stadium. All right, bye. Let's go north for 3 more hours. Like, or 4 more hours or 5 more hours or whatever it is. Like, that's a real factor in getting kids out of Georgia. So, some kids are not native Atlantans, the Atlanteans. The city has a lot of transplants, particularly on the north side where Roswell is. But it's tough to beat those kids, plain and simple. Whenever you've got Bama and Auburn and Georgia and Clemson and Tennessee right here, and you're out here distance-wise.
Javon McFadden is a 3-star, but it sounds like there's some like a mutual love on both sides there with Javon McFadden, kid out of the DMV. Dan Rubin knows all about him. He's from the DMV. Dan loves talking about his old stomping grounds. Ranked as the number 45 interior offensive lineman in the country. Something tells me he's a little underrated, so maybe they can get Javon McFadden. They missed out on that big guy that I liked from Fort Worth, Texas, Fanuku. He's going to Missouri. The kid that
he committed to Missouri. Yeah,
and I wanted that kid. Jackson Lloyd is a 4-star they're in on. The kid from California is here on a visit. So they're in on some guys. Andrew Stargell's another kid from Roswell, Georgia that they're in on. Ranked as the number 90 interior offensive lineman. But Javon McFadden, there seems like there's some smoke there. So we'll see what he can do. But what are your thoughts on some of these other guys? Micah DeBose is another one on the list.
Yeah, DeBose is what I was going to bring up. That's one that the problem is it's another Alabama kid. And a kid from Alabama, you have to beat Auburn and Alabama for him from there, right? It's like all these – imagine if we were on a Georgia podcast and we were like, Carter Lowe, why would he stay up north? Right. Well, yeah, it's hard to get these kids when you have like a really good option in your backyard. Like, now, the one who intrigues me the most, the ones you just mentioned, is McFadden, because he's from the DMV. But sometimes you see some of these DMV kids, they're either too highly rated or they're almost underrated, because there's always like 1 or 2 5-star kids from the area, and then it drops hard. And there's no local team there that's going to clearly be able to take him. That's one of the benefits of OSU recruiting the DMV or the Jersey area kids, right? Your biggest rival for those kids is Penn State and the Southern schools coming up. And OSU can out recruit Penn State, because once you have to drive a couple hours one way, you might as well drive an extra hour the other way for a much better option. I also think with McFadden reminds me whenever I pop this film on, it kind of feels a little bit to me like I felt last year about the Armstrong twins, where I'm like, they're not higher rated. What am I watching here? So I think McFadden's a kid that, as the recruiting cycle goes a little further and he gets his senior film, and I think he's going to go up in terms of what people think of him. OSU has a good track record of bringing kids in from DC area. He's one I think there's some smoke to. I really could see that happening. And I also think OSU is going to keep a close eye on kids in state. Right now, we haven't really had that second tier of kids from the state of Ohio at the offensive line position that have popped up. I mean, other than Carter Lowe, if you go through the Ohio State rankings, you had Nolan Davenport, who just committed from Massillon to Wisconsin. And then after that, there was only one other kid in the top 20 right now in the state of Ohio on 24/7's rankings that's an offensive lineman. And so that's a little atypical for our state. And then in the top 30, there's only those kids. I mean, really, you don't have many rated offensive linemen in the state of Ohio this year, which is kind of really interesting. But you do have a lot of kids in the state of Ohio that are committed to middle or level schools, right? You got, Jake Cook from Westerville is committed to Louisville. You've got Tucker Caddis from Xavier is going to Kentucky, But you've got guys that are going to get, I think, more of a look here as the year goes on. And to me, kids from Ohio that are committed to places like, Louisville and Kentucky and Wisconsin are, one spatula call away from being Buckeyes. I think that's just, you didn't make a decision early enough on them, and those kids made their choices. And if the OSU circles back, there's a real possibility OSU gets them. So keep that in the back of your mind too. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a quote project Ohio lineman that's a 3-star kid that gets in the class this fall. That's happened many times over the years.
Yeah, you mentioned Jake Cook. Mika also mentioned, she said, hope we offer Jake Cook. If they offer Jake Cook, he's going to flip from Louisville before they even get the sentence out of it. Jake, we're offering it. Yes. Yes, I would like to do that.
I was just offering you a sandwich, but yes, we'd also like to have you at Ohio State. He's a big kid. He's from, he's a great one too, to point out here, Dave. He's from Westerville, right? Westerville is not much further or not much closer to Ohio State than like those Roswell boys are to Athens in Georgia, right? And we're sitting here talking about Jake Cook. Like, if we offer him, he's staying. It's done, right? So that's kind of what we're up against elsewhere, and it's also kind of a benefit you have here. And I have long been a believer that I think a lot of the lower level Ohio guys after the top 5 or 10 are chronically underrated because we don't do 7-on-7 football or spring ball in the state of Ohio. So from a national level, a lot of the people who do these rankings, it's not a bias. They don't hate Ohio. They just don't see them as much. And if you look at the outcomes of all these Ohio kids, we're talking about kids that are like 30th in the state of Ohio, right? That are 3-star recruits. And there's always a handful of them every year that are NFL players a couple years down the line. It's not that the potential isn't there. It's just like from a place like Ohio State's point of view, you have to bring those kids in and develop them for a year or two to get them to the level they need to be to get on the field. So there's also a good argument for a kid like Jake Cook to go to Louisville for a year or two and play, and then go, hey, OSU, I'm coming home on the transfer portal. This is how recruiting is changing too for us, Dave.
Bax and I are going to talk about Ohio State's schedule in a bit. We're going to talk some special teams. Stick with us. We're going to talk some Ohio State football. But I want to let you guys know about Mando. Good deal you guys can get. Mando is all body deodorant, full body deodorant for men. My guys, do you ever lift a little too hard or just forget to apply your daily deodorant and get hit by a truckload of BO from all directions? Does that 3-in-1 shampoo leave you needing a second shower just a few hours after the first? Well, from the founders of Lumi, Mando whole body deodorant is helping men conquer their odor in a new way. Formulated with mandelic acid, Mando has long-lasting 72-hour odor control that actually stops odor before it starts. Mando's cologne quality scents were created with men in mind. Pro tip, try their best-selling scent, Bourbon Leather. It's a game changer. Bourbon Leather. Manly. Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, which is this, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes and free shipping. Luckily, I have a discount code to help you get hooked on my favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code Bucknuts at shopmando.com. SHOPMANDO.com. It's time to smell better naked. Your partner will thank you. There you go, Bax. It's time you smell better naked.
You know, I
you
learned
gotta
something
do that.
interesting the other day. Did you know that ladies, when they wear dresses, sometimes in the summer will put like deodorant on the inside of their thighs because it helps like their body like move better in the clothes that they wear? Like I've always wondered if I should try doing that when running with running shorts on now.
Well, maybe you'll try some Mando and you can try it out. Mando. There you go.
Send it my way, Dave. I'll let you know how it goes when my big fat butt's trying to run 4 miles.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine like how quickly my wife would want to divorce me if I was walking around the house naked all the time. Hey, but I smell good though. Come on.
Wait till the girls go to college, Dave. You can't do that yet.
Yeah, jeez. Yeah, no kidding. All right. So as I said, my buddy Bill Bender, who actually he's the national college football writer for the Sporting News, but he lives here in Columbus. I believe he went to Ohio University, great journalism school. Good guy. Did a really interesting story yesterday, ranking all 18 Big Ten teams as far as the difficulty of their schedule. Ohio State, 7th toughest schedule in the Big Ten. He's including non-conference. Ohio State's in-conference Big Ten schedule is no joke because they play, I've been calling it a 3-game regular season with at Oregon, at Penn State, and then Michigan at home. But like Iowa, everybody has Iowa ranked like as the 5th best team in the Big Ten or 6th best. They have to play Iowa as well. I don't think that's going to be a problem. Point is, he's also factoring in non-conference. Ohio State has a very easy non-conference schedule. So Ohio State, 7th toughest schedule out of the 18 teams, kind of in the middle. Michigan, the toughest schedule. After having the easiest schedule last year, now Michigan has the toughest schedule this year. Hate to see it, Bax. Man, hate to see that. But interesting stuff. And Rutgers has the easiest schedule. Rutgers avoids Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, and Penn State. So just, the 4 teams that have the highest odds to win the Big Ten this year. So
yeah, right.
Your thoughts on all of that? And there's some of the other teams that are mixed in there we can get into. But Buckeyes 7th, Wolverines toughest schedule, Scarlet Knights easiest schedule. So Greg Schiano and those boys are probably going to make the playoffs. No kidding.
Well, first of all, congratulations to Rutgers for going bowling this year. I think that's where we would start. So Michigan having the hardest schedule to me is zero surprise. We've been talking about this for months. They have a tough Big Ten schedule, and they have Texas on it. So good luck. Texas was only in the playoff last year, and Michigan having lost everybody too. Like I have been saying this for a while with them, Dave. This is a really hard schedule for a team that lost an absurd amount of talent and players and coaches and everything else. And with everything still hanging over them, you never know when that's going to reappear. The NCAA is notoriously slow, and when the FBI is involved, it's even slower. So Michigan's going to have a hard year. Like everybody's like, 9-3, 10-2. No, they're going to be worse. Texas is better than them. Oregon is better than them. Ohio State is better than them. They have a Texas. I think they have to play Washington too. I don't have their schedule in front of me, but it's a hard schedule that they have. I would be very surprised. And they also have to play, I think, Wisconsin, if memory serves. So they have a hard schedule. It's a very difficult year for Michigan on the schedule front. And I think do they play USC maybe? They have a hard year.
Right. That sounds right. Yeah.
I remember thinking their schedule had 5 games where I would put them as an underdog on it, looking at it. And so, yeah, this is no surprise to me. But at the end of the day, yes, Eric Turnbull just put the best thing. Connor Stallions is their biggest loss. Because let's face it, Michigan was a joke until the Stallions cheating regime came in. And they ran it as hard as they could. And then, like a good criminal, even though they knew they were committing a crime, they just kept shamelessly going about it, saying, what are you going to do about it? And then Harbaugh ran off to the NFL, hoping not to get in trouble. By the way, when Jim Tressel and Terrell Pryor got suspended for their NFL careers for something they did in college, I really hope that the eventual NCAA decisions that come up against Harbaugh applies to him getting suspended in the NFL, because that would just be fair. Now, it won't be, because the tattoo gate is, I think, going to go down as the silliest scandal in the history of college football the further we get away from it. But yes, the Michigan is in for, I think, a very rough year. If they've 9 wins to me for Michigan is their ceiling. Looking at this, knowing the roster changes that they have and the difficulty of their schedule. Like, I'm not trying to be like, "Brr, me Buckeye, me hate Michigan," but they're in trouble with their significant personnel changes that they've had. Their entirely new coaching staff outside of Sharon Moore, and now they have to play the hardest schedule. I would say they have the hardest schedule in the country, by the way, not just the Big Ten, the country. I don't. Maybe some poor SEC team has to play everybody good in that conference and has a couple out of conference games. I don't know. But if Michigan doesn't have one of the 2 or 3 hardest schedules in America, a year after having probably one of the weakest schedules in the history of college football, especially the first 10 weeks, I don't know what to like. I will be very impressed if Michigan wins 9 games this year.
Yeah, and you can still get their over-under is still 9.5. So yeah, people are like, "Oh, you're just Buckeyes saying that." I mean, people can put their money where their mouth is. If
Pound the under, guys.
Michigan fans out there are like, "Oh, you guys are crazy. We're definitely winning." And we're talking just regular season, so the 12 games. That's what you're betting on, right? You can still get them at 9.5. So if you're a Michigan fan and you're saying, "Oh, you guys are crazy," put your money where your mouth is. Take the over. Go for it. I'm taking the under. Now the problem with taking the under is Vegas knows. I mean, you're not. It's like minus 180 is the under. So basically, it really is 9. They're just trying to get you to bet on it. You're getting a little bit of plus. It's like plus 110 if you take the over, minus 180 if you take the under. But I still think that's good value because I don't see them reaching 10 wins. That means, I mean, you could take the under. They could get to 9-3. We're saying that's their ceiling. They could get to 9-3. You'd still win the bet if you took the under. So
Dave,
anybody out there that's saying, "Oh, you guys are crazy. Michigan's going to win 10 games or more." Hey, put your money where your mouth is. There's like 50,000 betting sites out there. Have fun with it.
Dave, I agree. But I want to point this out. I have their schedule in front of me now. They have out of conference. We all talked about Texas. They also play Fresno State their first game with everything changing over. Fresno won 9 games last year. Like, that's not like the easiest game in the history of humankind to walk into either. Then they have USC as their first conference game. Then they play Minnesota. That's a rivalry game for them. That's always an annoying one with PJ Fleck there because Minnesota takes it extraordinarily seriously, right? It's their version of what's the turtle with Illinois? Illabuck, right? Yeah. It's their version of Illabuck where they're like, "This is our biggest game." And we're like, "Hi, good to see you." Like, so that one's a sneaky one with them. And then they have to go to Washington. And then they're at Illinois, which Illinois isn't a total pushover anymore with Burt there. And then they have to play Michigan State. That's always a battle. Then they have Oregon. And then after playing Northwestern and Indiana, which they better win those, they have to come to Columbus. That's a brutal schedule. Just a brutal schedule. Because even like a couple of the games that you would think on paper are layups are not set to be layups. So that's hard. So, geez.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Let's not put
Appalachian Fresno State. I don't know if that would be as big of an upset. Fresno State was good last year.
Yeah. Yeah. And App State wasn't even like Division I yet. They were still 1AA, which made that hilarious. That was the funniest thing about that. I mean, App State was like a 1AA powerhouse, but still, Michigan losing to a 1AA team was hilarious. I remember I was sitting in Ohio State had played their game, and we were watching the end of it, and we're in the interview room waiting for Tress to come in, and they turned the TVs off because, Tress was coming in and starting the press conference. And in the middle of the press conference, you can hear people outside Ohio Stadium just going crazy. So we knew App State won. We just didn't know how yet. That blocked field goal. Hilarious.
Dave, we could have an entire podcast where we just have people send in their memory of where they were when Michigan lost to App State. I was at Outer Inn on campus that day in Columbus, and we celebrated like we won the national title. Yes. So, and if you remember, that was the first game ever the Big Ten Network broadcast. And we're all like, everyone's going to watch that.
That's
and then
right.
We're like, I think we played Youngstown. We beat them like 41-0 or something. But was that the year that Lawrence Wilson broke his leg late in the game? Was that the bad luck year for him where he broke his ankle, or was it?
I can't remember. But you're right. It's like our generation's JFK. I'm exaggerating. We all can remember where we were when App State beat Michigan.
Yeah, right.
Hilarious. Okay. I want to finish real quick with special teams. So I want your thoughts on this. Yeah, Jermaine brought up something. I wrote about this for the site yesterday. People can get on Bucknuts and read it. Did a deep dive on the special teams. I mean, Ohio State's too good to have the return game that they've had. I know they've pretty much taken kickoffs out of college football. Ohio State returned a total of 12 kickoffs last year, backs, less than one per game. But punt returns, there's no excuse to be averaging 5 yards per punt return for the top guy on the team. Ballard averaged like 5.4 yards per punt return. Man, give me Jeremiah Smith back there. Give me, Brandon Ennis back there. Give me Carnell Tate back there. As far as kickoff returns, you still need somebody explosive back there just in case. I'd like to see a Sam Williams-Dixon back there. I'd like to see, who'd be another guy that'd be good back there? Mylan Graham, I think, would be good. I don't know if you want to trust a true freshman as your kickoff returner, but find me somebody with sure hands that's explosive, and let's roll. Your thoughts on the return game this year and who might step up there?
So I'll be real honest. I've always been the other side of the return game, which is give me the guy who's most likely to catch the damn ball and not fumble it. Um, I still remain mentally scarred by watching Philly Brown drop punts in key moments at various points in his career. And then my argument, and then Jalen Marshall did the same thing for a while too. I remember writing a whole article on one bucket of bullets. I think I wrote 3,000 words about why it was stupid to have anybody but the most sure-handed guy on the team back there going, fair catch, give me the ball. And the reason for that was our offense is always good. We're always going to be a chance to score if we get the ball on the 25 or if we get the ball on the 45. So at the end of the day, I genuinely don't. And also, we're never going to have a kick returner we're happy with. We had Ted Ginn Jr. Since then, nothing will ever live up to that same level of amazingness with the ball in his hands on a kick anyways. So as OSU fans, we're always going to be disappointed in who the returner is, unless you are too young to remember Ted Ginn, which you need to get on YouTube then and go back and watch, because he's the greatest kick returner in the history of the sport that I've ever seen at least the college level. The reality, though, to me is that I'm more concerned about our special teams just not false starting, or not getting a holding penalty every time we cover a kick, or if we're going to run a fake, maybe actually run the fake, or if we're not supposed to run a fake, don't run the fake. Just being reasonably coached is wildly more concerning to me than whether or not we can get a guy to house the ball. That's just my 2 cents on it at this point. They're taking these out of the game. So make sure we secure the change in possession and let our offense go to work regardless.
Last thing, I'm curious to get your take on this. Now, there's no doubt Jaden Fielding's going to be the kicker, and I think he's going to have a good year. He's entering his junior year, second year as a full-time place kicker. He was the kickoff specialist as a true freshman a couple years ago. Second year now as the kicker, full-time kicker. I think he's going to have a good year as a junior. Punter is interesting to me. Okay, Jesse Mirko transferring to Vanderbilt. My guess with that is he went rogue too many times with fake punts, and I think Ryan Day probably told him to look around. Just a guess. So they bring in Nick McLarty. I was there when he was on his official visit. I was there. They had an open practice. I'm like, who's this offensive tackle over here? I thought he was an offensive tackle because he's not just 6'7". He's 255 pounds with pretty thick legs, I'm thinking for sure he's like an offensive tackle recruit. No, he's the punter. So I'm thinking, and then they offer him a scholarship and he accepts. I'm thinking, there's our punter, right? I mean, you don't offer him a scholarship if he's not the guy, right? Then after spring, they get Anthony Veneri. I almost forgot about this, from Buffalo. He was Buffalo's starting kicker the last 2 years as a freshman and as a sophomore. Actually averaged just a tick more than Jesse Mirko did last year. As far as averaged 43.7 yards, I believe, a punt, which is actually Buffalo's school record. So here you're bringing in a guy that was Buffalo's starting kicker the last 2 years, did pretty well. He's not going to be on scholarship, though. McLarty will be. Veneri's coming here as a preferred walk-on. What do you make of that, Bax?
Well, I think they're making of it that they know they have a very solid set option from Buffalo to come in. And while let's face it, the Aussie Rules football guy has not really seen or been a part of one of these football games yet. So, I think that he's the long-term solution. But I think in the interim, this is just being smart and having a stopgap in case you need to have him in play. I wouldn't be surprised if Velarde, how do you say it? Velarde?
Yeah,
Velarde. Is it Velarde? Look, Buffalo guy.
I just had it up. Hold on. I don't want to get it right. Veneri. Anthony
Veneri.
Anthony Veneri. Yeah, I bet he likes some gabagool, likes a nice cannoli, likes a little ziti. Anthony Veneri. Very Italian.
Good. He's going to punt with some dark chest hair coming out of his gear. But no, but I bet you he's the guy this year. And I say that because I think Ryan Day looked at it and said, I want somebody who's a veteran in place here. I want our special teams to immediately get better. And, if we have a guy coming from Australia, he's here for 5 years anyways. If you have another guy take a spot for a year or two, then the Aussie will be committed into the game at that point. Because most of these Aussie guys, let's face it, have never even seen a football game live. They just play Aussie rules football and then realize they can go to college for free because they can boot the living crap out of the football. It's an athletic game. I mean, he's 6'7", 250 pounds. Yeah, he was probably a pretty good Aussie rules football player. And I don't know the rules to Aussie rules football, but I know it's a bunch of giant men running and that occasionally have to punt at full sprint. So I'm feeling that this skill set for him will work out, right? He's going to make a couple spectacular tackles at some point after punting in his career. You watch. But it's a big transition, and I think it's smart to bring in a guy who's frankly good at it and has done it and is a proven commodity. So Venari is going to be the guy I think this year. That's my at least 10,000-foot view on it. Not by any way, shape, or form being in the know about the Ohio State backup punter situation, but this is Bucknuts, folks. So let's talk about it. Backup punters, baby.
I love how they're covering all of their bases this year. Like they had, because there was already a couple other walk-on punters. They bring McLarty in on scholarship. They have a couple other walk-on punters. I'm like, okay, they're good at punter. Dave's like, no, we're going to make, absolutely sure we're good at punter. We're going to bring in a starting punter, and we're not going to bring him in on scholarship, but he's going to come in as a preferred walk-on. I love it. I love that they're covering all their bases. This roster is just loaded.
Ryan Day is trying to idiot-proof the roster this year. He's like, all right, assuming everyone gets hurt, are we still okay?
Right. If we're playing our second team, are we going to be okay? Yes, sir.
Yeah, right?
Sir, yes, sir. Yes. At most positions, seriously. Not on the offensive line and a couple others.
We're going to have the bus with the first stringers on it and the bus with the second stringers just to keep them separate to every game. It's like the president and the vice president can't ride together. You are not allowed to sit next to your if you're a number 2, you do not sit next to the number 1 at your position.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Great stuff, my friend. You can catch Bax's column every Sunday. It is must-read material. It is the bucket. Thanks again to Bax. Thanks to all of you. We really appreciate it. Hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Go Bucs.